Hi, my name is Ryan. You're watching Shattered Truth. I want to tell you about something strange that happened with my neighbor's basement. If you could support me with a like and a subscription, I'd be very thankful. Let's begin.
I hear it again from the other side of the wall, a small echo wrapped in concrete. Not pipes, not appliances, not the usual thrum that lives inside old buildings. It's a pattern that repeats between longer pauses, like a heartbeat learning a new language. I freeze mid-step in my kitchen. The spoon in my hand hits the counter. The sound stops. Silence lays across the apartment. I wait through it, counting breaths I don't want to count. The noise returns, thinner now, as if whoever makes it is saving strength or measuring me. I step closer to the wall and feel it press back with its cold weight. The sound stumbles once, then lands. A muffled thud, a scrape, a hollow plea disguised as friction. I know which side it comes from, the basement below my neighbor's unit. I know because I've trained my ears on this place for weeks without admitting that I have. Tonight, admission arrives faster than fear. My hand reaches for the drawer. My fingers find a small flashlight and a folded pocket knife that feels like a toy. I pocket both. The sound flutters once more. Then it goes quiet, as if it too is holding its breath while I make my choice.
I moved into this duplex in Riverton, Ohio 3 months ago, knowing no one and assuming nothing. My neighbor took the downstairs unit next door the same week. He carried in plastic storage bins and a single mattress rolled tight with rope. He moved like someone who counts movements and hates waste. He never waved. He never needed a favor. His door stayed shut except for late-night trips to the curb with trash bags that sagged like wet laundry. The owner said the basement was shared but split by a wall. Each side reached by its own stairwell. My side held paint cans and a rusting dryer. His side stayed closed. A lock hung on his door. The first time I heard the noise, I blamed the building. The second time, I blamed the city bus that hissed outside at midnight. The third time, I kept the spoon suspended above my cereal until my arm burned so I could hear the pattern clean. Something tapping, something dragging, something pacing the edges of a small map. It grew on its own. It arrived on odd nights, then even ones, then both. I lived around it, which means I didn't live at all. I timed my showers to drown it. I used headphones to erase it. I failed. The sound learned me. It came when I cooked, when I lay down, when I paused on the top stair with mail in my hand and keys against my palm. And tonight, it comes when my patience ends.
I lock my front door behind me out of habit and because I want to hear the click. The hall narrows as I pass the neighbor's door, a beige slab with a peephole that never blinks. His name isn't on the mailbox, only an apartment number, same as mine with the letter switched. The building smells like old paint and coffee I didn't make. I keep my steps steady. The back staircase to my basement opens with a slow hinge. The bulb on the landing is weak, but the flashlight picks up what it misses. I close the door softly and test the steps with my weight. Dust rises without sound. The noise from the far side starts again, closer now, more eager, as if it recognizes the rhythm of shoes on wood. I find my half of the basement, small and square. The dividing wall sits in the middle like a shrug that turned to stone. Built-in shelves lean against it. On my neighbor's side, there is only the lock and the idea of space.
I crouch and press my ear to the drywall. The cold jumps through and settles in my skin. I knock once with my knuckles. The response comes not as a knock but as a sudden hush, then a slow pull across concrete like fabric dragged by one hand. I want to speak and decide not to. Words would break inside my mouth. The flashlight beam skims the baseboard. The drywall meets the floor on a narrow strip of wood. It lifts at one corner. I work my fingernails under the lip and pry. The strip snaps and comes away with a small crack. A draft slips through a gap big enough for sound and smaller than trust. I shine the light in and see nothing but darkness stitched tight. The scrape returns and stops on the other side of the gap as if a presence arrives to match my angle. I say nothing because I promised myself I would not. The rules are simple tonight. Move, observe, decide, move again.
The gap is enough to send a whisper of light onto his side. Through the slit, I read the shape of a bucket, the edge of a plastic bin, the shadow of a pole. I angle the flashlight and catch an old radiator pipe running along the wall.
The sound I heard begins again from the floor itself, a faint tapping that flutters and then resolves into a rhythm that isn't mine. 3 soft taps, a pause, 2. The numbers don't arrange themselves into anything I understand, yet my chest translates them to urgency. My throat also translates them to thirst. I feel the ridiculous weight of the pocket knife and wish it were a key. The lock on his basement door won't help me here. I am below it, beneath the threshold, inches from the thing that matters. I lower to the floor and aim the light. The beam catches a glint I cannot place. It shifts once, disappears, then returns with purpose. It's not metal, it's an eye, trying to find the center of the light. The knowledge lands like a body on the floor between us. I pull the light back out of instinct and hate that instinct immediately.
The tapping quickens, the scrape resets. I hear breathing, shallow and deliberate, as if the other side is measuring out the air. I mouth questions into my sleeve without sound. I press my palm to the wall to show I am here, that I will not back up the stairs and erase this. The breathing steadies. The tapping stops. The basement holds 2 people and a wall that forgot why it was built. I move to the shelves. The drywall screws I can reach hold firm. The studs I cannot reach hold firmer. But the baseboard strip came off easy and wood gives up faster than it pretends. I set the flashlight on its side to keep the beam steady. The pocket knife unfolds with a tired click. I work at the edge where the floor and wall meet, shaving splinters, pulling at a seam that refuses to admit it is a seam. Small progress announces itself in flecks on my jeans. Time keeps moving. The sound on the other side goes quiet again. Quiet but present. Quiet like a switch held half down. I keep carving because stopping would convert fear into memory, and memory is not allowed tonight.
A section of the bottom drywall gives with a soft fracture, then sags. I wedge my fingers underneath and tug. A thin strip peels away and drops. Dust climbs my wrists and settles on my tongue. I resist the urge to cough and push more panel loose. The hole widens to the size of my hand. The flashlight shows a concrete floor on the other side and a length of nylon cord stretched tight from a support post to somewhere just out of view. The cord shivers once, then steadies. A shadow shifts beyond the beam and resolves into the outline of an ankle. The skin looks raw from friction, a cuff cutting into it. I shut my eyes to steady the spike in my chest. I keep them shut a second longer than needed because opening them means accepting this new world, and I am not ready for acceptance. When I open them, the ankle is still a fact. The cord is still a fact. A narrow trail marks the floor in arcs, as if someone walked in circles until the map wore itself into the concrete. On the far side, a plastic bucket sits inside a larger tub, and I understand its purpose immediately and hate myself for understanding it. I shift the light, and another glint returns, and I, again, closer, focused. I hold the beam steady and offer the only thing I can offer through a hole I made with bad tools. I hold it steady and refuse to break the contact. My hands shake and I lock my elbows to control the tremor. The ankle moves a few inches and stops. The nylon cord flexes, then stills. I scan for knots, for padlocks, for hinges, for choices. The post anchoring the cord is old wood, splintering at the base. Above it, a metal bracket carries more weight than it should. Screws hold the bracket into the concrete wall. The screws are not industrial, they are ordinary. I carry ordinary tools. I pull back. On my side, there is a small toolbox I seldom open because I never needed to be a person who opens small toolboxes. I drag it forward and lay it flat. The lid sticks on the first try, then surrenders. Inside, a mess of a life that never anticipated this night. A hammer with a loose head, a flathead screwdriver, a Phillips that's bent to the tip, a roll of duct tape, a pair of pliers, a tiny hacksaw blade wrapped in paper because I forgot to buy a handle. I pick the pliers and push them through the hole. My fingers brush the other side of the wall before the metal passes clean. I laid the pliers on the concrete, on his side, where a hand can reach. I place the screwdriver next to them. I slide the hacksaw blade after, leaving the paper on his teeth to protect whoever takes it. I withdraw my hand and wait. The eye disappears from the gap and returns as a hand. The fingers are bruised and marked with residue I don't name. The hand pauses to listen to the room, then closes around the tools like a promise that costs everything.
The hand vanishes. A slow rasp starts beyond the wall, measured and careful. The saw bites something and murmurs about the angle. I wait through each note it sings. I hold the flashlight steady on the bracket that refuses to be a bracket for long. The rasp stops. The pliers replace it, wrenching a twist. The nylon slackens a fraction and pulls tight again. Feet reposition. A tiny gasp sneaks through despite effort. The work resumes. Each second carries two weights now. Whatever is happening to the nylon and whatever is happening above our heads. Because above our heads lives a door I did not lock and a hallway where steps can appear. I stand, move to the bottom of my stairs, and push a heavy paint can against the frame of my basement door so it will not open silently. I drag the old dryer an inch across the floor to jam the angle. The building complains in small ways that I accept. I return to the wall and the slow struggle at its base. The sound shifts from nylon to metal and back. The person on the other side learns the blade and the distance and the limits of their own strength. I become the person who waits without interrupting. That is my role until the next one finds me.
The rasp stops. The hand returns to the hole, reaching not for tools, but for my wrist. The touch is brief, a pulse of gratitude, urgency, and apology. It leaves fingerprints of dust and then disappears again. I hear the pliers bite, then a bracket give up with a low groan that the concrete tries to swallow. A small thud follows as something falls and rolls a few inches before catching. The nylon loosens more. Another thud, a hissed exhale without words. The eye returns to the gap now level with mine because a posture is no longer forced downward. I hold the gaze and feel something click into place between us that has nothing to do with names. On the far side, a hinge complains. A new sound arrives from above us. The upstairs floor answers with a single heavy footstep, then another. The hallway claims weight. The paint can against my basement door vibrates a millimeter. I kill the flashlight and let the dark become an ally. The steps pause, then continue toward the kitchen above me, which is also under his. A drawer opens. A cabinet answers. I hear glass move against glass. The pacing adjusts as if the mind directing it is listening to the building's heartbeat and aligning with it.
My own heartbeat betrays me. I lay the flashlight on the floor with the beam pointed into the toolbox so it glows without projecting. I slide the hammer through the hole and hope it finds a target that is not a skull. The hand takes it delicately and sets it down with care. The nylon scrapes once more, then parts with a sigh that isn't loud but feels permanent. I sense weight shift from object to person. A new set of steps begins on the other side of the wall, light and fast, no longer held. They stop at his basement door. A pause. A test of the lock from the inside. It holds because the lock turns from the outside. The steps return to the hole. The eye becomes a face for a half second, close enough that I register cheekbone and a line of hair stuck to damp skin. The face withdraws. The hand appears again, empty this time, and taps the edge of the opening 3 times. A code we didn't create. The upstairs steps reappear above the shared wall. The building studies us like a neutral witness and offers no verdict.
I decide in a single breath that I will not wait for the upstairs steps to arrive at my door. I also decide I will not climb up my stairs and run. The plan forms ugly and simple. I widen the opening at the base of the wall until a shoulder can pass. I pull the toolbox close and trade the hacksaw blade for the flathead. I crack the drywall along the seam with the screwdriver and the hammer, working low to keep noise registered as building fatigue.
Each strike sends a dull report up to studs. Each report likely blends into the upstairs pacing because this building holds many old sounds that echo one another. The drywall lets go in flakes and then in strips. The hole expands to the size of a small window for crawling. On the far side, the figure crouches and tests the space with a hand. I see wrists that carry the story of nylon and a forearm marked by tape. I see no sign of another person in the basement, but feel the architecture of control everywhere. I slide the duct tape through the opening. I slide a t-shirt I pulled off a shelf.
I motion with my head and hands to wrap the wrists, to disguise the marks, to bolt past the first glance if the glance comes soon. The person moves fast, silent, decisive. I don't ask who they are or how long or why. I don't ask because questions belong to later, and later is a place I haven't earned. The upstairs footfalls stop exactly above the door to his stairwell. A cylinder clicks. The door at the top of his basement steps opens. Air shifts in a way my skin understands. A single step comes down and holds. Another follows, slower. I lie flat and slide my body halfway through the hole I made. On his side, my shoulders fit, then stick on a nail. I shift and feel the nail tear fabric and scratch skin. The figure takes my forearm and guides it past the snag with practiced efficiency. I pull my legs through and land on his concrete floor. The room on his side is worse and better than I imagined. Worse in what it contains, better because the lock is now above us and I am below it with two working hands and a need. I set the toolbox between us and open it like a treasure I'm not worthy to hold. I find the Phillips, bent tip or not, and the flathead I already love. I point to the underside of the basement steps, where the first riser meets a brace. The screws face us, like little soldiers waiting to be relieved. We work with speed and restraint. I remove 2, then 3. The figure pulls another bracket free without metal crying out. We lift the riser by an inch, then 2, then wedge the hammerhead as a spacer. Above us, the steps pause. The rhythm shifts from descent to thought. A phone buzzes faintly across a pocket or a shelf or a table because such sounds travel through wood like secrets. The descent resumes. We move to a second brace, then a third. The riser now has a gap at the back, enough for a hand to slip past. I point to the lock bar mechanism at the top of the door. The figure nods and slides an arm into the darkness with the flathead like a surgeon entering a body without permission.
The tool meets metal. The wrist twists, then reassesses, then twists a new way. I hold the riser up with my shoulder and catch the tremble in my muscles before it becomes a signal. The footsteps descend 3 more stairs. A soft hum arrives, a tune with no words, casual and automatic. The figure's wrist rotates again with growing certainty, then holds still as if listening to metal think. Click. It is small. It is enough. The figure withdraws the arm and looks at me for the first time full on. The face is thinner than it should be, the eyes sharper than they have any right to be, the expression simple and impossible, resolve without ceremony. The bolt at the top of the door is now unseated. The door leans in its frame like it forgot its posture. The footsteps descend 2 more stairs and then rush the last 3 in a burst that declares ownership. The door swings inward under the force of the hand reaching for its handle, and the momentum carries the upper edge straight into the loosened riser over our heads.
The riser pops and jam locks against the stair stringer. The door catches against the wobbling board and fails to open all the way. A hand wedges through the gap and gropes for leverage. The figure beside me slides the hammer's claw through the opening we created and pries upward. The riser bites hard now and will not move without a decision I refuse to make. The hand withdraws. The door slams once and tries again. It fails again. The voice above the stairs forms a question I do not permit myself to hear as words because I promised the night I would not use any. The figure touches my elbow. We back into the dark under the stairs, moving along the base of the wall. A chain dangles from a hook above a workbench. Duct tape lines up in a row. A bundle of zip ties spills from a bin. My stomach flips and steadies. The door above us keeps trying to jam. The building takes all the noise and converts it to something that could be anything.
I point to the small basement window on his side. It's old and set high in the concrete, half hidden behind a shelving unit loaded with bins. I test the metal shelf with my shoulder, then shove. It slides just enough to clear the frame. The figure is already there, measuring angles, fingers testing the latch that holds the window shut from within. The latch is a joke. It breaks in 2 motions and falls into a bin with a soft plastic clunk. The window is small. The person beside me is smaller than their life. I boost them up with my hands clasped into a step. They climb without apology, brace on my shoulder, and lever themselves to the sill. Outside, night holds its own structure of fences and neighbors and streetlights we don't discuss. The person squints into it, then angles their shoulders and slide through the rectangle without sound. Their feet vanish. For a second, only their hand remains on the frame. The hand taps twice.
I move to follow, then stop. Something fixes me to the concrete. It is not fear now. It is the ledger of this room and the items in plain sight that no one should leave for later. I gather what I can in seconds that feel wasteful and necessary. A coil of nylon cord cut in 2 places to show the breaks, a roll of duct tape with fingerprints pressed into its edge, a set of zip ties with an imprint from a boot heel, a bracket with screws still threaded halfway, a phone I find under a rag on the workbench that blinks to life when I press the side. The wallpaper opens to a photo of an empty shed. I pocket the phone without looking at more because the upstairs steps have chosen anger now, and anger moves fast. The jammed door at the top of the stairs shudders once, twice, then stills. Silence swells, complicated and wrong. The silence is a decision. It means a new route. I spin toward the window. A shadow crosses it from the outside.
The person who went through has returned for me or for the, of course, next step I haven't envisioned. The hand appears again, urgent and flat, palm toward me, telling me to wait. I hear the other basement door in the hall open, the one that leads to my side. That door bears no jamb. The paint can will slow it for a second only. I weigh my options and choose the wrong one on purpose. I sprint to my hole at the base of the wall and dive through head first, dragging the toolbox after me by the handle. The toolbox catches and spills wrenches across my side. I pull the last of my legs through as the door to my basement groans against paint and metal. I roll and shove the dryer farther, a sound like 100 coins dropping at once. The door hits the can and the dryer. It holds for now. Shoes thud against wood above, then retreat. Another plan forms in a mind I can't see. I will not meet that plan in a stairwell.
I stand and find the window on my side. It is higher by a foot, smaller by an inch. The latch sticks but surrenders. I shove it outward. Cool night ghosts into the room, not welcome, not unwelcome, simply present. I recall my promise to avoid old habits of description and keep my thoughts pinned to action. I pull the shelf under the window. I step onto it and test the frame. It holds enough. I hoist myself up and through. My shoulders scrape concrete. My belt catches. I twist, push, and fall into a narrow strip of grass and hard dirt on the outside of the building. I roll to a crouch and scan left. The person I helped stands 10 feet away in the shadows between our buildings. They watch the alley. Their chest rises and falls. Their face points toward the corner where the stairwell door from the hall opens onto a concrete pad. The door bursts outward as my neighbor steps through with a posture that belongs to someone who thinks their plan is the only one available. He holds something low in his hand that looks more like certainty than a tool.
He scans right and left. He chooses right. That is the direction toward the street. We are not there. The person beside me taps my arm and we move the other way, down the alley that leads to the back lot, where a chain link fence stands between us and the block over. We jog without words. The chain link fence is taller than honesty and older than the last 3 tenants. We climb it because bodies climb when they must. At the top, the fence fights back with a broken spoke that slices my palm. I ignore it because there is nothing to do with that knowledge except keep moving. We drop into the back lot and cross between cars sitting in their own evenings. I hear the building's back door open again behind us. The sound of footsteps breaks into the night like oversight transformed into correction. We cut left behind a dumpster, then right along a low wall. The person sets a pace that matches mine and the shape of the city changes around us with each decision. We reach the next block.
We cut through a church parking lot where nothing is happening and everything is implied. I keep my eyes on the corners, the alleys, the lights that do not quite reach us. A car run-in turns over somewhere behind, not close, not far. We move faster. The person beside me holds an angle that keeps them on my blind side, which means they are protecting me or hiding. I accept either and do not question it. We reach a small strip of businesses that went dark an hour ago. A bench waits outside a laundromat. I do not sit. The person doesn't either. We keep moving past closed signs and silent machines until the block ends at a T intersection. The right turn carries us toward the main road. The left turn dips into a residential cut-through that dead ends in a cul-de-sac. We go left, down into quiet. I know the risk of quiet. I prefer it anyway, because control and noise belongs to whoever owns the noise, and tonight that is not me.
We stop behind a parked van where the cul-de-sac curves into itself, both of us bent at the waist, air sawn into pieces inside our chests, victory held at arm's length like a fragile blast we refuse to drop, and I realize I'm not just running away from a basement, but toward the person I become when a wall tells the truth and I choose to listen.